Hello and thanks for joining us from our studios in Israel. Coming up in today's newscast, the Israeli soldier Elor Azaria faces his first sentencing. A shocking report reveals that former President Barack Obama gave a last-minute gift to the Palestinians. And as ridiculous as this may sound, Israel celebrates as a missing monkey finally makes its way home. I'm Natasha Kirchek here with the latest news in Israel. All eyes are on an Israeli military tribunal today as the court reconvenes for the first time since finding Army Sergeant Elor Azaria guilty of manslaughter in a case which has divided the nation. Last March, Azaria shot and killed a Palestinian terrorist in Hebron who was wounded while stabbing another Israeli soldier. Military judges dismissed Azaria's claims that he opened fire because he believed the terrorist still posed a threat to security forces, and he was convicted of violating the values of the Israeli army on January 4th. At today's sentencing hearing, prosecutors are expected to ask for 3 to 5 years in prison, while Azaria's attorneys will do their best to get him no time behind bars at all. Character witnesses, including Azaria's fellow IDF comrades, former teachers, and even his mother, are slated to testify on his behalf. The defense team is reportedly rejecting the Army's offer of a plea bargain deal, and they're likely to appeal their client's conviction. The soldiers' supporters are holding a protest outside Army headquarters during today's sentencing hearing, which is being secured following violent outbursts during a similar demonstration when he was found guilty. 67% of Israelis, including Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and politicians from both sides of the aisle, say they support clemency for the young soldier. The IDF chief of staff possesses a legal power to pardon active duty personnel, and any citizen can be pardoned by Israeli President Reuven Rivlin, who says he'll only consider the matter once Azaria's legal options have been exhausted. According to Israel's Channel 10 News, Israeli police are now carrying out 2 more investigations of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, known as Case 3000 and Case 4000. ILTV's Aaron Porras has more on the story.
Thanks, Natasha. Yeah, we really don't know too much more about these cases. Details are really few and far between. What we do know is Case 3000 is said to be about the alleged submarine deal between Germany and Israel, and having Netanyahu's cousin involved with the deal, and it's really it's not looking great.
The new cases bring the total number of investigations against the Prime Minister to 4. Case 3000 has to do with Israel's purchase of submarines from German shipmart ThyssenKrupp Marine Systems. Until now, reports about the submarine deals have focused on the role played in the purchase by David Shimron, Netanyahu's relative and personal lawyer. The Channel 10 report gave no immediate details on the second new case, nicknamed Case 4000. Case 1000 centers on hundreds of thousands of shekels worth of gifts that Netanyahu is alleged to have received. The second, Case 2000, involves a supposed secret deal with Yediot Ahronot newspaper publisher Arnon Moses. Netanyahu is reportedly to be questioned for a 3rd time in relation to the ongoing investigations later this week.
During the presidential campaign, Donald Trump and his team often advocated relocating the U.S. Embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. But since taking office, the contentious issue has become far more nuanced and may already be moving to the back burner. In a statement issued before the first post-inauguration phone call between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, expectations of an imminent embassy move are now dimming. Some Israeli officials say the issue was barely discussed during the 2 leaders' 30-minute conversation. After a follow-up statement from Press Secretary Sean Spicer that the White House has only begun discussing the subject and that no decision has yet been made, one Israeli official commented that it sounds more like the embassy move is being walked backwards. The former spokesman for Israel's foreign ministry wrote on Twitter that Spicer's line was an age-old diplomatic code for "not now," which really means "don't call us, we'll call you." But others don't agree and say Netanyahu has never sought any kind of a time commitment from Trump. Several Israeli news outlets and pro-settlement groups are even interpreting the words of the new Trump White House as positive, since the starting of talks on the matter signals another step toward the symbolic recognition of Jerusalem as Israel's capital. There is awareness that the relocation might be destabilizing because of firm opposition in the Arab world, which is threatening that such de facto recognition of Israeli sovereignty over Jerusalem could have profound repercussions on regional stability. The Palestinian media is taking a cautious approach to the new Trump presidency, but Times of Israel Arab Affairs reporter Dov Lieber told ILTV's Steve Leibowitz that the Arab world is pulling no punches in its opposition to the U.S. moving its embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
The Palestinian media, we didn't see this massive coverage like we saw in the Israeli media. The Palestinian media, which is not totally independent, but it's been along the Palestinian Authority line, which is we're being very careful about Donald Trump. We're not making any statements about him. All we're saying is we congratulate him and we hope he'll help us make peace. That's the only thing they're willing to say about Donald Trump. So, for example, the big headline in the PA Daily, Al Hayat Al-Jadida, was Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority president, congratulates Trump and hopes he'll help him make peace. The other thing that we're seeing in the Palestinian news and the larger Arab world is that in his speech, for his inauguration speech, Donald Trump talked about eradicating radical Islam from the world, and obviously this interests the Arabs and the larger Muslim world, and so this is the part of the speech that they chose to headline with, the Palestinian news and the larger Arab news. But we're also seeing that the Palestinian Authority and also a bit in the Arab world, they're still criticizing Trump, not directly, but indirectly by talking about his Jerusalem policy. Donald Trump has promised to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. The Palestinians have said that this could lead to an explosion of violence, and that this kind of step would make it it's a breach of past deals between Israel and Palestinians. That Jerusalem. East Jerusalem might still be for the Palestinians, and if they move the embassy to West Jerusalem, for some reason the Palestinians believe that this could be the end of East Jerusalem as their capital.
They're also threatening some repercussions if it were actually done.
Well, yes, so they're saying if Trump does move the embassy to Jerusalem, that the Palestinians could stop recognizing Israel. However, this is not the first time they have made this threat. It's a card they take out often, perhaps too often, and I don't know how seriously the Israeli government is actually taking it.
And Egypt is speaking out. Al-Sisi gave some interviews just ahead of the inauguration. What was his message?
That's right. President Al-Sisi, the Egyptian president, invited the three big state-owned newspapers to his office last week. And part of that interview, he spoke about what he expects from Donald Trump. He said that he expects that the military relations between the U.S. and Egypt will get better, and that right now the U.S. is helping the Egyptians deal with a serious crisis in the Sinai. They're fighting ISIS and a couple of other radical groups, and the Americans are a big part of that. But he also said, kind of pandering to Donald Trump, he said, I knew that Donald Trump was going to win because he knows how to speak to the hearts and minds of everyday Americans. He had to put this statement out there.
I imagine there must be concern among some countries like Egypt, for example, Jordan and others, when Trump says in his inauguration speech that it's going to be America first. He's sort of indicating that the United States can sort of pull back and become maybe isolationist and stop figuring the rest of the world's problems, and certainly not force democracy on any others, just sort of be an example to the world.
Well, Trump is kind of contradicting himself because he's saying America first, which sounds like he's going to recede into America, but he's also talking about eradicating radical Islam. If you want to do that, you're going to have to actually put more energy into the Middle East. So.
All right, Dov Lieber, thanks so much for being with us at ILTV.
Thank you.
The Obama administration reportedly spent its final hours in power by defying heavy Republican opposition to quietly release $221 million in funding to the Palestinian Authority. Former President Barack Obama had been battling Congress to release the money for the Palestinians for some time, and his last-minute maneuver overrides holes that Congress has had in place over the past 2 years. These kinds of congressional blocks are generally respected by the executive branch, but this one wasn't legally binding since the Palestinian funding had already technically been allocated when American lawmakers gave it their initial approval as part of the 2015 and 2016 federal budgets. They later stopped it from being delivered as part of a punitive response to unilateral Palestinian efforts for membership in international organizations. According to one State Department official and several congressional aides who remain unnamed since they aren't authorized to speak to the media, the outgoing administration unexpectedly notified Congress the money was being released, just hours before Donald Trump took the oath of office. The financial package is supposed to be used to advance political and security reforms, the preparation of good governance, and the rule of law in a future Palestinian state, as well as humanitarian aid in the West Bank and Gaza. The new president and the congressional members of his Republican Party are likely to be outraged by Obama's last act. A top Hamas official from the Gaza Strip is currently in Egypt for meetings with Egyptian security officials in a bid to improve ties between the Arab state to the south and the coastal terror group. ILTV's Aaron Porras tells us more in his report.
It is the highest level visit by a member of the terrorist organization since Egypt's army overthrew Islamist President Mohamed Morsi in 2013, a leader of the Muslim Brotherhood. Egypt has largely kept its border with Gaza closed since 2013 and has destroyed hundreds of Palestinian tunnels used to smuggle commercial goods, cash, people, and weapons. Egypt also established a 10-kilometer buffer zone along its border with Gaza. Ismail Haniyeh is currently based in Doha, the capital of Qatar, after he left Gaza last September. He's been meeting in Doha with Hamas leader Khalid Mashal and is considered to be the front-runner to replace Mashal if he steps down in the spring.
The Israeli Knesset State Control Subcommittee is expected to approve the unsealing of a government report on the last conflict with Hamas 3 years ago that's said to be fiercely critical of conduct by the high-level security cabinet. Now, Aaron, what should we be expecting from this report?
The report is more or less on the intelligence regarding Hamas's terror tunnels during the 2014 Gaza war. So releasing these documents, the underlying concept behind that is to learn from it. So let's take a look at my piece and learn some more.
Two of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's chief political rivals are leading efforts to release the report, which was written by the state comptroller. Education Minister Naftali Bennett and Yesh Atid leader Yair Lapid were members of the Netanyahu-led cabinet during the conflict, and they strongly dispute the premier's versions of events. One of their claims is that they were never informed of the threats posed by the existence of Hamas terrorist tunnels until just a week before the outbreak of violence, while Netanyahu insists that both he and the nation's defense minister kept the ministers fully updated well in advance. According to leaked drafts, the report validates Bennett and Lapid's accounts. Bennett says the report shouldn't be suppressed so lessons can be learned from mistakes that were made, while Lapid wants it released for the sake of bereaved Israeli families who are mourning soldiers who fell in the 50-day conflict.
את הדוח הזה צריך לפרסם. צריך לפרסם אותו למען המשפחות השכולות, מגיע להן לדעת מה קרה שם. צריך לפרסם אותו בגלל ביטחון המדינה ובגלל שזו מורשת צה"ל. לא מסתירים כשלים, לא מסתירים מחדלים, דנים בהם באומץ וביושר כדי להיות טובים יותר בפעם הבאה.
Both politicians are accusing Netanyahu of trying to bury the findings out of political motivations.
If you're a music or classical theater buff and you always wanted to go see the latest, most incredible and world-renowned performances but just couldn't make the trip, then our next guest has some great news for you. Sofia is a music-centric networking service specifically developed to host and help expand the world's community of musicians and music lovers. Joining me to tell us more about Sofia is actor, director, musician, and founder of Sofia, Dan Shore. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So let's begin. What does Sofia do exactly, and how does it work?
Okay, the whole idea of Sofia is that while you're with your private jet in New York, watching something at the Met, you're missing out on something in Australia, something in Paris. So the whole idea was to create an international online music hall where you just sit back on your couch and have everything you want right there on your computer.
So is this live streaming or is
It's
it?
live streaming. All of it is
Wow,
live
okay.
streaming, and all of it, once it's streamed, goes online on demand.
So do you have to pay a fee to be able to access it? How does that work?
Yes, yes. Well, there are two ways that you can join as a subscriber, which is a one-time deal, and then, but for very, very special performances, you're covered. Or you can just buy a one-time ticket to watch the opera from Copenhagen, if you
Wow,
so much.
that's really, really interesting. Now, this is something that's very unique. How did you come up with the idea for this?
It all started with the concept that I wanted to show people how a musical event is actually created. So I have, I have been involved in many operas and concerts, both as writer and musician. And it's so fantastic, people come to rehearsal for the first time, they meet the music, and then at the back of their minds they meet the audience, which will only be there in 10, 15 or 30 days. And it happens, and in most places 3 days and it's off and it's gone and it's forgotten, and 5 days later they start something else. So the idea was show people how it's created, how it started, how the conductor, the musician think about it and start.
So this isn't just the concerts, it's also the process up to the concerts.
Yeah, it's,
Wow.
We have online live conversations with writers, Umberto Eco we had in our... The whole thing is everybody is at home with their computer, and all the people from around the world, when we had Umberto Eco, we had something like 3,000 people from around the world. We had people from Malaysia, we had people from Mali, we had people obviously from the States, Italy.
Well, I mean, it seems like you're really providing an outlet for people who don't have access to seeing these performances on the ground, actually be able to experience this, which is a big
even
deal.
if they do, whatever you see,
Right.
you're missing something else. So
That is true. That is very, very true.
The idea was to create centers and teams that would go around and would capture whatever is happening in Italy, France, the States, Israel.
Now, may I ask, where does the name Sofia come from?
Universum Sofia, which in Latin means the world or the universe of wisdom. The concept is wisdom is anything that has to do with the process of learning, the process of creativity. So actually the name started with my girlfriend, who said, you have to use something with you. And then she says, philosophy.
But her name's not Sofia.
No.
No. It's all about wisdom and learning to appreciate music. So for those of our viewers who are watching and would like to subscribe to this amazing creation that you've made, how do they do that?
Well, the best way to go about it right now is to email us at info at u-sophia, that's SOPHIA.com, and just say we would like to subscribe, and our guys will take care of you.
And just to clarify, what are some of the different types of performances you can see? Is it only music?
Right now it's music, and it's basically jazz, opera, and classical music.
Okay, great.
We cover festivals. There's a fantastic festival in Ravello in Italy. We cover festivals in Denmark. We do some in Israel, the States, France. We're going to open up Australia, New Zealand.
Wow.
Stay
All right, well,
with
so
us.
there's a lot to look forward to if you do subscribe. I think I'm going to go check it out myself. Thank you so much for coming
Okay.
in.
Thank you.
Now, Israel has long been at the forefront of the medical marijuana field, and now the Israeli Agricultural Ministry is set to fund even more research into the development of cannabis to help those in need. $2.1 million government dollars will be allocated towards the development of medical cannabis growth, biochemistry, and medicine. 13 different unique projects will be using that funding to not only identify new strains of cannabis, but to also improve vision, fight cancer, and boost the body's acceptance of transplanted organs. I bet you had no idea medical marijuana could deal with some of these issues, right? Well, the international medical cannabis market is forecast to be worth around $20 billion a decade, and here in Israel, it's already legal to use a drug to treat pain and other illnesses. Around 1% of the globe is estimated to become possible medical marijuana users at some point during their life. This isn't the first time that Israel has taken an initiative to be a pioneer in the field. Last summer, the government approved a plan to relax some of the medical cannabis requirements and expand the number of doctors that can issue prescriptions of the drug. Now, with the new funding going towards developing the medical benefits of the marijuana plant, we may be able to expect even more reform in the nation-state of the Jewish people. So this story is not for the faint-hearted. Israeli divers and photographers are flocking to the northern coastlines today so they can get their very own first-hand glimpses of the scores of sharks that have been spotted swarming in the area. The rare sight of the sharks is being welcomed by nature lovers who are capturing their images with airborne drones, as well as sophisticated underwater camera equipment.
And this is amazing. You can actually stand from the shore and watch the sharks in the water. We don't know of any other place like this, definitely not in the Mediterranean. Sharks are disappearing all over the world, and the worst place to be a shark is in the Mediterranean. They're decreasing very, very fast in numbers. And the fact that you can see sharks here, big sharks close to shore, is amazing.
But aquatic experts say the reason for the phenomenon in recent years is somewhat of a mystery.
We don't know yet why they're coming there. It might be just because of the warm water. It might be because there's more food there. It might be for the gestation period, for the pregnancy, but we don't know it yet. We're doing research in the university. We tagging sharks, we're catching them, tagging them, measuring them, trying to learn more about them, more about why they're actually in the power station. When do they come here and why do they come here? And this has only started, so hopefully we'll have more knowledge in the future.
No matter why they came, the pool of sharks is being welcomed in the Jewish state. There haven't been any recorded incidents of sharks attacking people off the shore of Israel for decades. Just as a precaution, authorities are reminding the public that even though these sea predators aren't threatening, they're still wild animals that need to be protected and respected. Now here's my favorite story of the day about a 17-year-old little monkey who cleverly escaped the Ramat Gan Safari Park outside of Tel Aviv last week and finally made it home. Thankfully, the public is now safe again now that the wedge-capped capuchin named Connor has been secured in the outdoor park once again. We're just kidding, of course. The poor little guy was certainly a lot more scared by his escapade than anyone else. Zookeepers kept on trying to catch him with traps, but ultimately Connor turned himself in after being enticed by the most convincing of means, a few peanuts and a reward of his very favorite snack, a flower moth caterpillars. Connor was reportedly given a warm welcome back by the rest of his clan, who are native to South America and are known for traveling far distances by swinging through tall trees. Capuchins usually only weigh about 7 pounds and are identifiable by small black triangles on fur on their heads. The park's personnel say they're now going to make a few modifications to make sure there won't be any further jailbreaks in the future. All right, now for our Hebrew word of the day. Earlier today, dozens of sandbar and dusky sharks were spotted off the coast of northern Israel, and we thought we'd honor these beautiful creatures in today's word. So the word is karish, meaning shark. There are a lot of krishim, or sharks, in the world, and not all of them are swimming about in the oceans. For example, if you're a hardline businessman making impersonal decisions, they call you a karish. That being said, the karish is often misunderstood. Behind the rows of sharp teeth are unusually gentle giants. In fact, the largest of the sharks often eat the smallest of food. So before you act on those preconceived notions about the sharks in the sea or the sharks in the boardroom, try not to judge a karish by its cover. Let's go ahead and take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight will be partly cloudy with a chance of rain and a low of 60 or 16 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow will be mostly cloudy but unseasonably warm with a local high of around 71 or 22 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.79 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv. Thanks for watching and see you tonight.